Hey there, friends and family. Thank you so much for your support in helping me get to El Salvador on the mission trip with the team from my church. We had such a great time out there, and God definitely did his thing. So what our team did was we worked with a ministry out there called King's Castle. And King's Castle actually has a different amount of ministries set up in different countries all around the world. And of course, we worked with the ministry out in El Salvador, and they do different things. They do construction, they do media, and they do what we did, which was evangelism, specifically spectacle evangelism. So what we did was we learned some songs, we learned some dances, we learned some skits, and then we went out and we presented them to the kids that we were able to present for. We had some games and activities, and ultimately the missionaries were able to just share the gospel to the kids, to the students that we got to interact with. So starting on day one was all filled with just learning 4 different songs and 3 different skits in a completely other language other than English and Spanish, of course. And it was tiring, but it was so worth it, and it was so fun. And then later that evening was probably one of the best parts of the trip, in my opinion, which is the prayer fortress. And we just had such a deep time of worship and prayer, and just setting our hearts and our minds and our souls on the work that God had for us for the rest of the week. And during that time, I really felt God just challenging me to raise my faith, to raise my expectation, and just to believe him for great things. Now, I didn't know what all that meant or what all to expect throughout the rest of the week, but God just really showed up in just the ways that lives were impacted. We got to pray with a lot of students, a lot of kids. We got to interact with them. We got to build relationships and have fun with them, play games with them, and all of those things. And ultimately just being able to share the gospel, share what God has for them in word and in action. One of the ways that God really built my faith, one of my favorite stories, and I won't drag it out, but we prayed a lot for people's health and people's healing. And there was a young man that a small group of us had came across, because on Wednesday morning, day 3, we started out the day by splitting up into groups led by our missionaries, by the nationals, and just going house to house, interacting with people, praying with people, sharing the gospel, and inviting the families out to the program that we had later that afternoon. And there was a young man who had been in a car accident. His body hadn't healed well, and God just really challenged me to pray a different prayer. Normally with these kind of things, I pray over the doctors, nurses, medicines, anything that's already designed to help people feel better. But I felt God really challenged me to pray a different prayer, to pray over his healing, and to believe that God was going to actually do it supernaturally. And long story short, he did. And just being able to witness it firsthand just really raised up my faith, really raised up my expectations. So that was one of my greatest takeaways from this trip. Overall, the week, it was super fun, super engaging, super exciting. I probably danced harder than I ever have my entire life. But overall, it was just such a wonderful time. And God gave me 3 takeaways that I want to share as well. Is that number 1, it's so important to pray often and pray with others, because there's power, and God shows up when we unify together and we seek his face together. Number 2 is just to be ready for what God has in store for us, to take those first steps to whatever way that God is leading. Even if I don't understand it, even if I don't know it, even if I'm nervous and have reservations about it, just take the first step, and God is going to do the rest. God's going to do some great and mighty things. And the third and final takeaway is just to be praying over the next generation. And I've seen this all of my life, especially with being a middle school teacher and working with youth. I love it. I enjoy it. But God has such great plans for youth and such great plans for them to be impactful in their friend circles, their families, and those other places that they are placed in, that they find themselves in life. So just be praying for the next generation because God is doing some great things with them. Well, thank you for listening to my story. Thank you. Love you. And once again, thank you so much for your support in helping me get to El Salvador, whether it was financially, whether it was spiritually, through prayers and positive words of encouragement. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and God bless you.